It's another edition of the Talkin Solutions with the Chesh podcast. And in this episode, we're talking about a disability that you may not know about. I have the founder of Global Vision 2020, Mr. Kevin White, with us today, and his company offers the USee Vision Kit. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Will, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And Kevin, I wanted to bring you on and chat with you today because what really interests me about what you're doing, well, number one, it's fantastic that you're providing the USee Vision Kit and glasses and making vision available to people in kind of remote parts of the world. But I find it really interesting because for people living in America, Europe, Australia, places like that, we don't even, I'm sure people wouldn't even really think of vision as a disability, but it is globally a huge issue. And what you're doing is providing a solution to that. So I'd like you just to kind of tell us a little bit about your solution and what Global Vision 2020 does and provides.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Will, thanks for the opportunity to do this. It's great to get the word out and to kind of raise people's awareness that this is an issue. Like you mentioned, this is the world's largest unmet disability. And a couple of years ago, the New York Times called it something, the one that you probably never heard of. Poor vision, we completely take it for granted, that we can correct that solution here in the U.S. Your local optometrist just around the corner. We have one optometrist for every 8,000 people or so. And in parts of the developing world, those numbers are closer to 1 to 1 million. Last I checked, Ethiopia, for instance, has 100 million people. They have 75 optometrists. So even if you had $200 sitting in your pocket and you wanted to get in that line to go get, it's just there's no access to it. And in remote areas of Africa and even Central America, South America, they're just not there. They're all in the hubs where they can make money, obviously. So access is a big thing. And without it, you can't drive, you can't make meals. If you have near vision problems, you can't sew, you can't thread a needle, all of these silly things that we take for granted are impossible if you don't have a pair of eyeglasses. So I had worn glasses my whole life. I remember waking up and having to find my glasses just to see the clock on the side of the bed or go to the bathroom. But it wasn't until about 2005 when I discovered how big of a problem this was in the developing world. So I used to be a Marine. I guess I technically still am a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. But I'm a former Marine, retired Marine at this point. But in 2005, I was running the humanitarian assistance programs for the Department of Defense in Africa and Central Europe and Eastern Europe. And the first deployment I went on in that capacity was we set up a hospital in remote parts of Morocco, and they were giving away donated eyeglasses. And as a professional logistician, I was, really just taken aback at how inefficient the system was. No one got 20/20 in both eyes, and people were literally choosing the frame style that they liked as opposed to the prescription that they needed. So which obviously was not going to be a choice for them. They had what they had. And I saw a young woman, pick a pair of eyeglasses. They gave her these massive, probably don't remember Farrah Fawcett, but Farrah Fawcett had these, massive rose-colored eyeglasses, and she's like, no way. She kept pointing to the table, She wanted these little thin Sarah Palin things, and she put them on, and they didn't work. She put them on the end of her nose, and she walked out thinking, well, not knowing I didn't know what she was thinking. Maybe she thought, well, I know I need eyeglasses. Those look like the ones I would wear, and maybe I'll get used to them. And it was just, I said, man, there has got to be a better way. So since 2005 until today, I've either been working on it full time or working on it part-time to kind of get to where we are now and make my company and kind of help address this massive global issue.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit about Africa, parts of South America, and Central America as well, and Asia as well. I'm curious of really the ways that you kind of discover these communities and kind of go out and actually do the outreaching. Do you work with coordinators from those countries and things of that nature? Does it stem from your experience in the military with the Marine Corps, or how does that kind of work to a point where, I feel like that's a problem in and of itself, is just finding these communities and then creating that system for access.
Yeah, so most of our customers, we'll call them, the people that take these kits and use these kits are already there doing good work. So they're already there doing training and education programs, or they're doing running schools, or they're helping farmers. They're doing these sort of things. So we allow them to kind of bolt on this additional capability of screening and dispensing eyeglasses. So they're the customer that I'm looking for, the people that are already, traveling to these communities or supporting these communities, because this, at the end of the day, we really want this to be a community, self-sustaining, that the community themselves can get these kits and can provide glasses for their communities. And when we talk about the system, you'll see how simple it is. But so finding those communities is really about access to people that travel there and are doing things there and are supporting communities in those locations. So whether it's churches, we have a faith-based coordinator who works with churches that travel. We have an African operations coordinator. He is calling the ministries of health in these different locations, different countries, and the national eye health coordinators, and kind of, selling them, as it were, on the capability of these systems to increase their access. So remember how I talked about there's one optometrist every 1 million people? So if the bottom of my screen represents 100% of the population, the umbrella that covers eye care is covering about 10%. So what we're trying to do, of course, is just make that umbrella bigger and cover everybody. Now, the optometrist would still be in that top 10%, but your non-eye health professionals that get training could screen for and dispense eyeglasses. And then those that these glasses don't help could then matriculate up, get triaged up to that next level of care, whether it's an optometrist or an ophthalmologist, whatever at the top of that pyramid. They could, like if they don't have refractive error, they've got macular degeneration or cataracts, they would just go up to that next level and next level. But by creating that really large umbrella, you can get universal coverage for the biggest problem. 92% of eye health problems can be solved. Where are they? With a pair of these right here.
Wow. That's really fascinating to me, and the fact that you talked a little bit about the system, but the levels that you have as well. And you mentioned a faith-based organization you work with. I feel like that's not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong here, and I'll ask you for this opinion as well. But I feel like maybe that's not as commonly utilized or anything. Like maybe in those other countries, when you using them as a resource for companies of that nature to try to get to those points, or.
Well. I forget what the numbers are, but it's a really high percentage of the medical community in the developing world is run by faith-based, whether it's Catholic Charity, whether it's World Vision, whether it's Samaritan's Purse. Most of them are started off as faith-based outreaches and have become, a healthcare provider in a lot of these communities. So they are one of the first access points that can kind of show efficacy, that can show that the system works. We're supporting a startup program with the Red Cross, and Red Cross, obviously, people don't really associate it as a Christian organization, but that Red Cross means something to somebody. It did start off as a faith-based group, and it still is at its core. And the delivery of eyeglasses to their health clinics isn't based on the faith of the people they're supporting. It's just, based on the organization providing care and support to people in underserved communities. So yeah, it's a great way in to kind of show that the system works, and we've had a lot of success there.
Yeah, I think the one thing that stood out is I wouldn't have thought to use like a faith-based organization or another organization as like a terms of a team that would be capable to provide kind of that medical, or I guess, smaller medical attention that you would need to distribute those glasses. So I think that's pretty neat and an opportunity to kind of really expand that without having to just push forth a bunch of new optometrists or things of that nature, which would prove to be quite a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, just creating an optometrist is a challenge in and of itself. I mean, a lot of African nations are starting to have colleges where they have optometry, but they're all supported by, either Fred Hollows, it's an Australian group that trains optometrists. They set up the curriculum, but there's only, small numbers that graduate. It's still extremely expensive to do that. $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 of education, et cetera, over those years, and producing enough, we'll just never get there. So the way I tackled this was, we have to rethink about how we can address this issue. And I actually looked to I'll call it the regular medical community, the not the medical community, but normal health. And as a for instance, a really good example of that is Plumpy Nut. So you probably have never heard of Plumpy Nut, but Plumpy Nut is a fortified, it's like a peanut butter or nut spread, and it was invented by a French dietitian or a pediatrician slash dietary specialist. And what he noticed was millions of African children were dying every year from malnourishment. So he said, what's the easiest, simplest, best way to prevent this? So he created this Plumpy Nut. He fortified it with all the vitamins and minerals that they needed to sustain, healthy growth and, eye development and all these other things, and started providing it. And then he basically came up, I think, with 4 or 5 different ways to, the age of the baby, the height, the weight, the dimensions of the wrists, the dimensions, those sort of things. Came up with it. The health worker could put in those parameters, and then it said, okay, this is the formula. This is how much Plumpy Nut you need to give them, and it saved millions and millions of lives. But if you had a child here in the United States that was malnourished, you couldn't just give them Plumpy Nut. They'd have to go to a doctor and figure out what's going on for obvious reasons. We have a healthcare network that can support that, but you in resource scarce areas, you sort of have to come up with different and other ways to get to the same end state, which is a healthy child or a person who can see with the resources that you have, which are not optometrists or doctors. It's going to be somebody else. So that's kind of how I went into this, thinking about this, was how do I make it so simple that a Marine could do it, or that anybody could pick up this system and just run with it. And only I can make that joke. Really... You're not allowed to make that joke, Well.
Yeah, I was going to say I can't resonate with that. To me, so that seems challenging enough as it is. Kevin, one thing that I want to ask as well, and have you kind of explain a little bit, because I do think that this is probably lost, and people I would imagine never think about this at times, is what are some of the side effects to a community, to an economy, to all these things when you don't have people that are able to address such a large disability, when you don't have people with vision? That's a lot of impairment. It's something that I don't think any of us think about because it's not an issue, but right. I would imagine there's a lot of problems that come with the inability to see properly.
Absolutely. So I guess what I can tell you is that the people are studying the issue. What is the effect of glasses upon a community? So we can summarize or extrapolate what we think is happening to communities where there are no eyeglasses, and so anecdotally what I've seen. But what we know is that there was a study a couple years ago where they put eyeglasses on tea pickers, and so what was the impact to the tea picking? So their productivity increased 34%, their pay increased 20%. All of these factors just from wearing like a $2 pair of reading glasses in that instance. There was a study in China that showed children that needed eyeglasses were 1 or 2 years behind their counterparts and eyeglasses, because they didn't learn as quickly, because they're most children are visual learners. They don't have ebooks and books too much. Everything's on the chalkboard or on the whiteboard. So they're just sitting there struggling. They get labeled as bad kids. They get moved to the back of the class, worst place you could put them, because they just simply can't see the chalkboard. So anecdotally, I met this child in Namibia two years ago, and I'm talking to the teacher. I said, so what's the story on this guy? And he goes, oh, he's been in the second grade for 3 years, and if he fails this year, we're just going to send him back to the farm, to his house. And I'm like, okay, well, how well does he see? And she was like, see, what are you talking about? He's like everybody else. He's fine. I said, okay. Sure enough, the kid was like 2200. I mean, he couldn't see like a 6-inch letter from 20 meters away. I mean, it was terrible. So dialed him in. Yep, sure enough, he needed pretty heavy prescription. Put him on, and he was just like looking around like, this is what the world's supposed to look like. And so what I like to do is when I give someone a pair of eyeglasses, I'll take them off, go outside, and I'll say, hey, what do you see? And then they'll tell me, and I'll put them on. So this kid, I said, all right, took his glasses off. I said, what do you see? And he said, oh, I see the hill. And this village that was in was kind of wrapped around this big hill, this big piece of terrain in the middle was sort of defining their village, and they were wrapped around it. And then the river was on the other side. And I said, okay, we'll put on the glasses. He put on the glasses. And I said, okay, what do you see? And he started at the bottom of the hill and just went to describing I see a bush, I see a rock, and then I see my friend, I see a goat. And then he's going up and up and up the hill. And at the top of the hill were these two trees. And he starts screaming, I see the two trees, I see the two trees. And I'm like, oh, okay. And the principal, I said, hey, what's the deal with the two trees? And he goes, oh, you don't understand. His whole life, this kid has heard, we're the village with the two trees. You know, you go down this road, you take a left, go to the village with the two trees, you take a right, you know, blah, blah, blah. They had a name, but everybody referred to it as the village with the two trees. He'd never seen the two trees. So when he saw these two trees, he was like, I see the two trees. He was just screaming. It was really cool. I was getting all, you know, just so happy for him that he could see. And he was just a great kid. So it was nice to see a transition from someone whose world was about, you know, as far as his fingertips, open up to, you know, the infinity that it's possible for this kid now.
Yeah, what a great story. What a great story. Yeah, can you imagine? I would love to have been there to see the reaction as well. That's a really cool idea, the way you do that. And yeah, I mean, the effects are obvious, right? I mean, the kid that was sitting in the front now goes to the back, couldn't see anything. Yeah. Now, obviously, the vision is enhanced, and I would imagine things probably make a lot more sense now.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
he passed the second grade. We did hear that he passed the second grade.
See, there it is, the vision. That was the issue, and they wouldn't. It just wasn't thought of to address that.
If you have no solution to a problem, then you know you just have to figure out, okay, this can't be that much of a problem, or something. It's something that they hadn't really thought of, and it was nice to see the principal and the other teachers realize, these kids aren't stupid. They just have these vision issues. So.
Right. And tell us a little more about the USee Vision Kit, about the solution and how it works and why it's more affordable and why it works better than maybe other types of glasses and things of that nature as well. What makes it stand out to be such an effective solution?
Yeah, sure will. So it doesn't look like much. So this is the USee right here. And what it is it's a progressive lens in front of each eye. It goes from, for those of you that, you know, that you listeners and viewers that will know diopters. So a diopter is a measurement of degree that your focal point has to move back and forth. So if you're 1 diopter, it may need to move 1 millimeter. If you're 3 diopters, then 3 millimeters, and so on. So this lens, and again, I'll show it for your viewers, as I pass it through the monitor here, you'll see my face get smaller and smaller. So we're getting into the -6 range. And as I go back over here, we'll get into the...
Yeah.
So it changes the focal power and the focal length across the eye. And then that little viewing aperture here, you see right here, the patient's looking through that spot and they're turning this dial. And as they turn the dial, you see these numbers change. So what they'll do is they'll dial through and they'll stop and go, okay, oh, I can see clearly right there. So I go, all right, you're on a red 4. Then I'll reach into my big bag of colored lenses and I'll grab the red 4 out of the bag, you know, the bag here. And in this bag is a lens. And that lens, as you can see, makes my face smaller. It's a -1.25 or so. And then they pick a frame that they like, and you give someone a choice. You know, I always want to give choice. So we've got kind of a reddish burgundy here, a black, and a turquoise. And they're fashion conscious, so they went with turquoise. You pop out the plano lens, and we add a plano lens so that in case they only need prescription in one eye, or if they're blind in one eye, you don't have an open hole. Then you just line up the lens, and then it just pops right in, and then bingo, you make a pair of eyeglasses. So you have them do both eyes, obviously. And the reason I came up with it was I've been working with a fluid-filled pair of eyeglasses, a pair of eyeglasses that was designed to be the end product. And what happens in here is you've got the silicone syringe, and you turn this dial, and it increases and decreases silicone pressure. It changes the shape of the lens. Then you tighten up this little screw here, cut off this tube, and then the tube gets removed because you crimped the plastic tubing, and you make these pair of eyeglasses. Now, I don't know about you, but I would wear these. You might wear these. I could not get a 22-year-old African male to wear these at all. I went back, and they're thick. They're about 6 millimeters thick. They're very heavy. They slide off your nose. There's lots of issues, and these are still about $25 a piece. So for many reasons, I came up with these aren't going to be the long-term solution. They're too heavy. The fluid itself, if it leaks out, they're no good anymore. If air gets in, sometimes you'll see air bubbles in there, and people just wouldn't wear them. They have to be round, et cetera. Now that's changing. There's new technology coming out that makes them much, much, much better. But I don't know if we'll ever get to the cost of a pair of these. We can get these for just a few dollars, like $3 to $5. You can get a pair of eyeglasses, and they're very fashionable. Spring hinges, et cetera. But my gap analysis was, so I've got this great capability of the patient to be able to turn the dial and tell me they can see clearly, but I don't have snap together eyeglasses. So in 2013, I just sat down with a piece of paper and said, all right, how would I design a system that could do that? And fluid filled wasn't the answer because, pressure, altitude, temperature, et cetera, changes the volume of the liquid, so therefore it wouldn't be calibrated. But a polycarbonate lens that has, an infinitely, or from -6 to +6, progressive change would allow that focal point to very naturally move back and forth and give you a very, very accurate reading. Even where you had two lenses that do the same thing, if one of those lenses gets just a little bit disheveled one way or the other, you're going to change by quarter or half a diopter and again lose efficiency. So this was the most efficient way to come up with it, a single power lens that at the same distance from your eye as the prescription, turning it and limiting, again, you limit the patient to this little viewing aperture. So horizontally it's the same power and vertically it changes less than a quarter diopter. They're going to come up with the clearest vision possible. It's just very natural. You give a 5-year-old a pair of binoculars and just say, look through these and turn the dial. 100 times out of 100, the kid's going to be able to see clearly. They're going to figure it out. They're going to go, oh, okay, yeah, here it is, and make it clear. Sorry, ambulance, right?
No worries. They got an important job to do.
Exactly.
It's very interesting. So I find, so that it sounds like it took years to kind of master that, and you made one type of comment as well that I think I kind of went over my head, which is just a lack of it. You think the vision is the most important, right? Like, hey, whatever can make me see. But at the same time, you forget that glasses, and I don't have glasses. I don't wear glasses. So for me, I haven't had, firsthand experience. But when it comes to glasses, there's a fashion element as well. Like I know with sunglasses and stuff. So you have to consider that when you're creating these glasses, not just, hey, is this going to see? But like you said, is this 22-year-old kid going to wear it?
Yeah, are glasses a fashion, what is it? I call it, is it a medical necessity or a fashion accessory? And glasses are probably the only device that is both. People will wear Plano lenses because they look cool. And yet other people have to wear them. Even sunglasses are different. Sunglasses are but they're still a fashion accessory. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are cool sunglasses. These make a 54-year-old man look cool. And how cool is that? So, people don't want to put on something that makes them look bad. I mean, I grew up in the UK, and I got National Health eyeglasses. And National Health eyeglasses, well, they used to look like this. And this in 1979 was not a cool look until Elvis Costello made it a cool look, and then it became cool. But everybody wants, if it's for free or if it's ugly. There's some question as to, is there any value to that? So, lots of things go in, like you said, lots of things go into the mix of not only does it help you, is it a medical necessity that we're solving, but is it a fashion accessory that you will wear? So we're even going down the road, will 22-year-old Ethiopian men wear prescription sunglasses, that are blue? I don't know if you can see the blue there. And the answer is yes. If we made these prescription glasses, which is our next, the next iteration of our kit, is to put tinted lenses in here. I think we'll get a lot more uptake of young drivers who, the driving numbers in the developing world, the number of deaths is so much higher than it is here in the United States and in Europe. And one of the, and if you talk to specialists, they'll go, oh, it's the infrastructure, it's no traffic lights, it's the vehicles don't have the safety belts and all this other stuff. And I agree, all of those are issues, but we've never studied and we've never come up with there has been a few studies, but glasses make a massive difference in your ability to react. If you can see 6 meters down the road clearly or 100 meters down the road clearly, you'll have a much safer time driving if you can see 100 meters down the road clearly. So we know that the numbers are higher, and now all we need to do is saturate an area with eyeglasses and determine, do their accidents go down? So that's the next thing on our agenda as well, is trying to find the partners that can do that.
Interesting. Yeah. Man, that's a great point. Yeah. Driving. I mean, come on. Yeah. That's.
We have to pass the driver's test, a vision test to get a driver's license. In much of the developing world, you don't. You just take a written test, and then away you go.
Yeah, which sounds a little scary, right? When you have all that, but at the same time, it's not set up well.
No. Every time I show up in a developing country, if I get assigned a driver, or if I'll ask them, hey, can you read that license plate across the street? And if they read it off straight away, I'm like, oh, good to go. Yeah, let's go. And if they don't, if they're like, 2-8, and it's completely off, I go, hey, come over here. Let me show you something. And I'll have them put it right there at the airport.
Have a look.
I'll have them put it on and dial, and then I'll make a pair of eyeglasses and just hand them to them, because it's, why not? And one, it's made their life better, and two, I can relax a little bit. I don't have to be, so alert. Look at stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. You don't have your own thing. Yeah. One of my favorite parts about the solution, just listening to you chat and explain it a little bit as well, is just how big of an impact and an effect it has, because it's one of those things, again, and I know I've already mentioned this, but, we just don't think about it. It's just not something that's thought of, and so when you think about how important it is to see just for a community, an individual's life, a family, an economy, for safety purposes when it comes to driving, doing work, like it's immense and it's huge. So I think that is an amazing part. And something I want to ask you as well is, why do you think the gap and the problem just kind of existed there? Why do you think that they weren't able to kind of come up with a solution like yourself earlier to try to get glasses to these communities? Do you think it just had something to do with profit, money making, or what do you think kind of led to that?
I think it's a whole host of things, and you hit on a couple of them. One is and like I've heard stories from some friends of mine from the Netherlands. I was talking to their mother, and she said, in 1945, if you needed eyeglasses, there was a salesman. They would come by with a suitcase, and they were either donated eyeglasses or found eyeglasses or ready-mades. And you didn't go to an optometrist. You just tried until you got something that worked, and that was good enough. But since then, obviously, we've sort of graduated into this refined medical experience that so you back to the eye health exam, the air pup, their ocular pressure, all of these things, retinal scans and so on, that we've got such this high level of care that we say this is the standard. So now we're trying to apply that standard to a resource poor country that does not have retinal scanners or any of the equipment or any of the trained personnel to use it to solve the problem. So a lot of reluctance that I got from a few of the groups are like, no, it's unethical for you to do this. And I'm like, is it unethical to hand out Plumpy Nut? Well, no, because you're saving lives. And I'm like, okay, so this is not life-saving? Well, and they go back and forth. The 8%, like I said, 92% of the problem is refractive error. 8% is these other pathologies: cataracts, glaucoma, corneal opacity, macular degeneration, pterygiums, and so on. All of these other trachoma, these things. And you need an optometrist or an ophthalmic nurse or an ophthalmologist to solve those. But they don't want me to address the other 92%. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. So that's one issue. Now, a lot of optometrists and ophthalmologists are on our team, and that, yes, this is great. We can take these bites and we can take bigger bites and bigger bites and bigger bites, and then we'll have the problem solved. And they're supporters and champions of this, so it makes it work. So it's not the community at large, it's just a few members. And then the Eyeglasses Community is obviously headed by one massive company. Luxottica and Essilor used to be two companies, Italian and French. They have since joined together. They are doing a lot of work in this area. They have a company called 2.5 NVG. That's 2.5 billion new vision generation. And the goal of that, of course, is to sell glasses down as low as they can on the pyramid. But they're also kind of bound by or restrained by their size and by the industry. The majority of their customers are the optometrists and the high-end optometrists. And if they were to, my opinion, if they were to say, all right, let's lower that educational threshold and get others to sell eyeglasses, that would probably not be very popular with their larger customers. I could be wrong, but that's sort of my feeling on that issue. So they're sort of restrained by that. Once the regulations get passed, or this is more accepted, and the eye health communities within these countries says, yeah, this is a way we can solve this problem, that'll probably change. But for now, our self-refraction folks are kind of the start of, I think, a movement to say, let's change the way we can deliver eyeglasses, at least for this group of people, and this group, and then this group, until we can get to that really large group that can be solved at $3 a piece, instead of a $40 eye test and then a $25 or $30 pair of eyeglasses and so on and so forth. That just isn't sustainable when you're living on less than $1 a day. You have to be able to. It has to be sustainable if it's going to work, and the cost of conventional is just too much to do this.
Yeah, I definitely see how that could be. It's a whole systemic process right now where, you go into the glasses and it's just steps and steps. It's far removed from, like you said, in the 40s, I believe you said it was, with the salesman coming around with glasses and, hey, give it a try. Can you see? Great. All right, move it along, So, yeah, so I definitely see how that causes an issue, especially when you look at the global scale as a whole and just how fast economies have moved within the last 100 years and things of that nature. And, developing countries are part of that. They're moving quicker than they ever have as well, but they're still behind in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, they're leapfrogging in a lot of areas. Like, exactly. They're not installing copper networks and phone networks. They're going straight to cellular and straight to, and so on, for obvious reasons. It just doesn't make any sense to go backwards in technology and install it. And I think this could be the same thing. One of the things you mentioned that kind of triggered a memory or a thought was that I've been having too is there's two issues to overcome. One is access, and we talked about that. But the other is the knowledge that the eye is an organ that varies from person to person, and that glasses are the tool that corrects it. Like those school teachers, they had no clue that these children, that this portion of children had an eye issue, or that their eye was any different than theirs or the other students. And when they see eyeglasses, they think reading glasses for old people, and they think sunglasses for the really cool, relatively rich people. They don't equate eyeglasses to distance vision. So that piece of knowledge, that's the other thing that this does, is allows people to see, my vision is different, and then when we take the tests, we use this big E chart. We'll test people with 20/20 vision, and they'll go all the way down to the bottom, and they'll tell me exactly where the E goes. We use a tumbling E, and then they'll watch their classmates or their fellow teachers take the test, and they'll only be able to see like 2 or 3 lines from the top, and go, I had no idea that they had an issue like that, because you don't talk about it. You don't sit there squinting, going, can you see that goat? No, I can't see the goat. You just move on,
Exactly. Yeah. And for those of you listening that can't get a visual representation of the glasses in the UVision Vision Kit, be sure to check out the video on YouTube, or of course you can see us on our Instagram page and Facebook at Talkin Solutions Podcast. And we should have some examples on there as well, because it's definitely worth checking out and having a look at it. And of course you can go over to Global Vision's website, which is gv2020.org. Kevin, I want to ask as well, we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges that you face along the way. It's trying to convince people, hey, the eye is an organ, you need to train. Hey, there are people that say, well, that's not the correct system and the correct process in order to get glasses. It could be an 8%, so we can't just focus on the 92. I want to see what your thoughts are about the future. I mean, you mentioned that you kind of see that potentially changing as the optometrists and they get more and more education around it as well. Do you think this is going to be an issue that we can kind of hopefully eradicate and really solve within the coming decades?
That people are coming around and organizations are coming around to tackling new ways and new and innovative ways to kind of solve some of these larger issues. And glasses are, it's unique in so many ways. Like I said, it's a fashion accessory, it's a medical necessity, and so on. And it's a disability that is so easily solved with a pair of eyeglasses. So as long as I don't go into a community and say, all right, we're going to train these completely separate non-optometry people over here to do this, and optometrists, you're over here doing your thing. That's not good for anybody. That's not good for the people getting the glasses that have no recourse to go up higher, and that's not good for the optometrists because they're not getting access to these customers. So everywhere I go, I say, let's find that next echelon of care, whether it's a community health center that has someone trained in ocular pathology, or the district hospitals and so on, all the way back up until they get to an eye health professional. Let's link all of these systems. But meanwhile, let's grow these bottom systems, whether it's community health workers, whether it's teachers, whether it's pharmacies, whether it's traveling salesmen, whether it's churches and faith-based groups. All of these people, these groups that have direct access to the people that we care about, the people at the bottom of this pyramid, can screen and dispense eyeglasses, can determine, does the person see well? Will glasses solve the problem that, because they can't see well, will glasses solve that problem? And then let's make a pair of glasses and then double test that it works. So I definitely see growth in the bottom layer possible and probable, so that within the eye health community, they can be part of and can grow this system themselves. So whether it starts with optometrists saying, all right, I'm going to hire 20 people to go to all these remote villages around the city that I don't go to. They're going to sell glasses at $5 a person. And, I'll make my cut on that. But they're also going to refer people to me if they have massive astigmatism, or if they have a visible pathology, or if they just cannot see, no matter what they do, they can't see. They're going to refer them, or I'm going to go and see them. Once a year, I'll go to these villages. Set up all these different possible systems that allow for taking care of the bottom and then moving people up and up and up to the next level until everyone gets kind of a universal eye health program. And whether that's, a program that is private, but at low cost, or whether it's government at low cost, and so on, all of these things are better the cheaper that you can get a quality product to the person at the base of the pyramid. If it costs the government $50 to give a citizen a pair of eyeglasses, they're going to be much less likely, or they can do 10 times as many people if it costs only $5 to do it. So they'll have a lot more, that money will go a lot further if they can do it at a lot cheaper price. Having that optometrist use the system and try to get 1,000 people a pair of eyeglasses is way more expensive than having 10 community health workers get those same people done in a day, and faster for them to do it in a day. So yeah, I do see growth. I see this as an elegant solution for very low cost for massive amounts of people. And I think as long as we can embrace, that the streamlinedness, or the matriculation of those skills down the set, I think it'll be a lot better for everyone. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, tackling the issue at the roots instead of focusing up on the top and trying to manage up there. I mean, that never usually works as well. So going down to the actual root, building up those from the bottom up, I think is really effective on that front as well. Curious to hear a little bit about maybe some of those challenges. I mean, you've addressed them a little bit, but maybe to get more specifically, when you're trying to get these pitches, or I'm sorry, when you're pitching these glasses to organizations, to governments, to things of that nature as well, what type of feedback have you been getting, and how did it start? What's it at now, and kind of that process in terms of them trying to accept that and trying to get them to say, hey, this is 92% of the people.
A lot of
this
times
can help.
people don't even. I mean, by people, I mean even the Ministry of Health. Some of the ministries of education. They don't really think about the numbers, the amount of people that are living in their communities that have an undiagnosed refractive error. So I'll just use the basic numbers, that we get from surrounding countries or wherever we can find this data. And let's just, so anywhere from 10% to 20% of a population between the ages of 6 and 45 are going to have myopia. So let's just say it's 10% as on the low side for Ethiopia. They have 100 million people in the country. That's 10 million people. They're solving 5%. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. They're solving 10% of the problem. Okay, that's 9 million people. So now you have 9 million people in their country that we're very confident, and it's probably going to be higher, very confident that they have refractive error and they have no access to getting that problem solved. So if just highlighting that issue in any country, whether it's a country of 1 million people or a country of 100 million people, it's sort of like, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. So that's one. Then you show them the solution. And you get a lot of questions. So what about astigmatism, or what about these other eye pathologies? And you walk like I did here. We walk through those. All right, these are the issues, and this is how you overcome them, and this is what you could do. It doesn't take long, and they all go, yeah, we can do this. And then they quickly move into solution-oriented implementation of a tool that I didn't have before. And those are the best. When you get someone who's just like, yeah, I can see I see where my end state is. My end state is, as a National Eye Health Coordinator, I have 100% coverage of refractive error and a referral mechanism of 100% coverage for macular degeneration and cataracts and trachoma. And I can do all of this. And they can do it with the resources that they have, because all of those numbers become manageable. So the sell is easy once you get the right person who's in the position of authority, who sees that their job is to take care of the eye health of their nation. And when you can give them a tool that quickly gobbles up 80, 90% of their refractive error problem, the 92% problem, and 80, 90% of that is taken care of with these, they can quickly manage that remaining 12%, 10%, whatever it is, of people that need astigmatism, and then they can, and so on, and they'll find the other people with these other eye pathologies, because the system itself is all about looking in the eye and determining, this person needs glasses, does not need eyeglasses, needs something else. So it's it is a relatively easy sell, but they still don't know about me. So it's still, exactly.
So it's creating the awareness.
Getting the data.
Okay. And what types of things? And tell us a little bit about what you're doing to try to create more awareness about it. I mean, obviously being on a podcast helps, but some other things that you're doing to push this narrative out there, because again, I really do think it's you're at a disadvantage because it's something nobody thinks about, and it's something that especially in a lot of the countries in the U.S., the Europe, and Australia, and Canada, and parts of South America, places like that, is something that frankly they've never seen, so they don't really maybe. I don't want to say care about it, because I think they care about it if they were aware of it, but just one of those things that it wouldn't even cross their mind. So what types of things are you doing to create some awareness and market yourselves so we can get this solution out there and get you in front of these people?
If more people knew about this and the impact that it had on people, and knew that it was a problem, and knew that the cost was too great, and so on, all these other issues that we've outlined today, I think we would get more traction. So, like the New York Times did a front page article in 2018. I thought, man, this is it. This is going to put us on the map. And, it was the front page for one day and then nothing. these things take time. It really does take time. And I can see progress in the acceptance of self-refraction as a solution, in the body of work that proves that it, so we've done clinical trials and we've done field trials, and, the Wilmer Eye Institute at Johns Hopkins did trials, and we've got Orbis doing trials in Mongolia, et cetera. We did a trial in Vietnam for kids. So having a body of papers and data that shows, yeah, this works for 8-year-olds. This works for 12-year-olds. This works for 42-year-olds. This works, and so on, is great. There's people who are studying the problem more. There's now more papers, like I mentioned, that paper on the tea pickers. There's other studies going on that show that the positive impact that access to eyeglasses has. All of those are making a difference. How do I sell? It's going, well, before COVID, it was going to those conferences, those health conferences, those International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness conferences, finding the ministers of health and the national eye health coordinators, and just talking to them and saying, look, check out this device, check out this system. And sometimes it's effective. They get inundated with all kinds of, great ideas and so on. But this is, is it too simple? And they go and they move on. So I don't know what exactly works. The Minister of Health that I'm having luck. I have luck with one country in South America. We're in the very, very early stages of starting up a national eye health program. It was the Minister of Health himself that I got in to see through some connections I had at Johns Hopkins that, have sort of started. It's like, hey, this is great. We can make it, it's a new government, and, they just taken over from the old government, and they're like, yeah, we can make an impact. And they really want to, and they really can. So getting his eye health coordinator on board, and, having those conversations with him, starting trials, starting, rollout, and so on. And having that one country national program check in the box, I think is going to be great to show, like, oh, let me show you the successful nation here that has a national eye health program that includes, the poorest of the poor getting their first pair of eyeglasses for free, or whatever they come up with, so that everyone has access and everyone can reach their maximum potential, not limited by poor vision that they had nothing, that they were just born with and they had nothing to do about. So yeah, it's getting those people to identify, to show it, and then being able to point to large groups like the Red Cross, like the Mennonite, the Mennonite Church is doing stuff. All of these organizations, there articles are being written about them, and studies are happening, and these sort of things. So it's slow going, and I feel like it's an uphill, like pushing a string uphill sometimes. But I'm sort of like, I'm here, I've got the solution, come find me, I can help. It's not. I think it was who was it? Was it Ralph Waldo Emerson? He said, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. And I used to, when I was a kid, I thought, man, that's great. You build something that that everybody needs and everybody wants. You have to be turning them away because everyone's going to want one. And I know now that in our day and age, when the information is just a fire hose of information and a fire hose of ads and all this other stuff, it takes a lot to stand out. Even if it's the greatest invention in the world, it's just going to take a while for it to kind of, and then it, as long as some TikTok influencer starts wearing the USee around, or who knows why things go quote unquote viral. It's odd. It's weird. It's like nothing, and then it's going to be like this. I'm hoping that happens to me. I'm hoping that we get that sort of attention, and like boom, here we are. Yeah, let's solve the world's problem. But it hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
Get yourself in front of some of those TikTok, Instagram influencers, and maybe we can do it. That may not be a bad idea to at least look into out there, because I'm sure there are some. I'm sure there are some influencers out there that would think that's such a cool solution, and especially with the positivity around it and the type of great things it would provide for people.
What good is visual art?
It could work. It may not be a bad idea.
Right?
Exactly. Be like, hey, you can reach more people with your audience if
Yeah.
No. Yeah, exactly. If they could see properly. And no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, if it works out with the government and the country down in South America, now you have a nation that you can talk to and say, hey, this is implemented into their plan. These are the results. It's really, really affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, could be free potentially. Obviously, the government will, deal with all that stuff. But, it's an opportunity to really grow your nation and grow your people, build up your economy. Like we talked about earlier in the podcast, there are just so many things linked with vision that if you don't have vision, it's like we said, you take it for granted. It can really limit your ability as a human to do the things we want to do. Kevin, I do want to ask you a little bit, because we've been so engaged in this conversation. I find it so fascinating, the solution that you have. But I want to know a little bit more about your background, because your background is really interesting as well. A Marine, U.S. Naval graduate, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit. You said you grew up in the UK as well, which I wasn't aware of. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure, yeah.
And then how you got to this point.
I was an Air Force brat. My dad was in the United States Air Force. I was born in Turkey, and then about a few months old, I moved to the UK, lived there until high school in Florida. Then I enlisted in the Navy. I was in the Navy first. So I was an enlisted man. I was a submariner. So I was on a nuclear sub out of Pearl Harbor and machinist mate. So I got to fix things on the boat, which was great. And from there, I applied for the Naval Academy and got into the Naval Academy. And then while at Navy, I really started to like what the Marine Corps mission was. I realized that I wasn't just this skinny kid out of high school. I could actually keep up with people running and, pull-ups and push-ups. And I said, oh, I can do that. So I decided to become a Marine. I rode crew, which really helped on that physical side. So became a Marine, did 20 years in the Marine Corps, various jobs in the Corps. Loved it. Okinawa, Japan, went to Texas, to Navy's mine warfare. I mean, all kinds of really interesting jobs. But the joint command job at UCOM was where I, as the humanitarian assistance guy, it really turned my head towards the humanitarian world and everyone involved in the humanitarian world. And there was so much good work going on. When I retired, I said, I want to kind of keep going on that. And I didn't actually invent this device right away. So anyway, so I retired in 2009 and started working with the fluid-filled eyeglasses. So I'd use these first in Africa. Oh, yeah, you can see the bubble there. See that bubble? Those get really distracting when you're trying to put them on and they look through these little bubbles, oil goes through. Anyway, so I started Global Vision to actually start using these, and did a few outreaches in Malawi and Liberia, etc. So every year I was still working in a defense contracting job and things like that, just doing this as a hobby. And in 2013, I'd stopped doing the fluid filled. I'd realized that this just wasn't a viable solution. It was too expensive per person. They were too, non-aesthetically pleasing. I couldn't get enough people to wear them. And it just wasn't seen as a viable solution when, these just regular glasses were so much better. So that's when I came up. So 2013, I'm sitting at home at my kitchen table saying, what do we need? And I designed a lens, called a friend of mine in the UK that made lenses and said, hey, these are my parameters. Can you make me one? They made a lens. They cut it out of on a CNC, out of plastic, sent it to me. And at the time, my youngest son was 10 years old. He'd gotten his first prescription. He needed eyeglasses. And so I cut a hole in a piece of paper and had him hold up the card and look through at an eye chart. And he said, right there, Dad. And I marked it, and then I counted the tick marks, and his prescription and what he had found were an exact match. And I said, oh, N of 1 is 100. I'm 100 clinical trials are over. No, but I knew I was onto something. I knew that there was correlation between what the prescription was and as it just makes sense that it would. But all of those experiences, whether it was having to do calibration on a submarine, that I knew that gauges that were relied on fluid were notorious. They had to be calibrated very, very often. So I said, okay, so fluid is not my product of choice. In a mechanical calibration, where, like I said, where there's two lenses, if one moves, that's not my, so simplify. I was a science major at the Naval Academy. So physics and, so I took several courses in different physics and, underwater acoustics and sonar, which had no bearing on this whatsoever, but it was just a really cool class. Taught by Wendy Lawrence, who was, the astronaut. So I was pretty. It was pretty cool having an astronaut as well. This was before her astronaut days. Anyway, so all of these experiences kind of culminated in a guy who's familiar with a problem that not many people know about, this massive global need for eyeglasses, especially non-optometrists. Optometrists are probably aware, maybe not, I don't know, of the greater need around the world. With the right education and skill set to sort of come up with a really simple solution, not being clouded by, all of the massive technology that's out there, like, how a phoropter works and how what's the hit a button, the autorefractor. The solution, there's some fantastic autorefractors coming out of MIT. They've designed some beautiful autorefractors, but they're still, $1,500 to $2,500 a piece, and you still get a prescription that you need all kinds of equipment to make a pair of eyeglasses. So great, I'm -2 with 2 degrees of cylinder at 165 degrees. So now I have to have a person who knows how to take that massive lens, turn it to 165, cut it to fit, and put it in here with the right pupillary distance, and so on. So you just add on all of these other things. And I said, nope, simple. I took it down to the basic level. So I don't know why me and why I got this education and this exposure, but it's just the kind of the way it worked out. So I feel very fortunate to have, had the right skill set and the right friends, to be honest, the right friends that could help me through this exposure to this world of optics and this world of plastics manufacturers and so on, to kind of get to where I am now. So I've had lots of help. So some friends in the UK that build lenses, David Crosby has been phenomenal. Poly1, now they're called Avient Corporation. They took me on board as a collaboration for a cause. They helped me move my pencil sketch to CAD and then helped me get with the injection molding. It's just been a wild ride. I won the $1 Million Creator Award from WeWork a couple years ago. That money helped me that was amazing. That got me the funds that I needed to go to injection molding, which is not inexpensive, as you can imagine, and sort of grow that profile and grow the logistics capability to build the supply chain. And the supply chain is like everything. The world runs on logistics, and if you don't have that supply chain that can get this kit matched up with these lenses, matched up with these frames in the right place at the right person at the right time, it's never going to work anyway. So yeah, it's been a real journey, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's fantastic what you said. You said like, oh, I don't know why me that I, had the accumulation of all these skills and stuff. But I think the most important part of that is that you're embracing it and you're going forward with it and you're pushing it and you're really trying to get this problem solved with a fantastic, affordable solution that can literally change the lives of lots of people across the globe. Before I let you go here, Kevin, I want to I want to ask you, what's the mission? What is the #1 mission for Global Vision 2020? Tell us a little bit about that, why you founded, your principles of the company.
The end state of our company, of course, is equal access to the tool that changed my life. As I got my first pair of glasses at 7 years old, and I lived in a country where that was available. I started running into things and tables and hitting my head on things, and my mom said, this kid ain't right. But let's get his eyes checked. And sure enough, I needed eyeglasses. I have 2 sons that both need eyeglasses, and I cannot imagine how I would feel if they needed eyeglasses and I couldn't provide them, or that and if I knew they needed them, and so all of these things. I just would feel so unfair that my boys can't read the chalkboard, they can't drive, they can't do all of these things because they don't have access to this simple life-saving or life-changing device. So my goal is to ensure that the 2.5 billion people that currently live without eyeglasses have access to them. And I can't do that myself. I need these partners. I need these pharmacy groups and these community health workers and these ministries of health and ministries of education, ministries of transportation, to also embrace, we have a problem with the people that we, that we support, whether they're drivers, whether they're students, whether they're citizens, or whether they're all three, that cannot live, someone who's visually impaired and cannot get to 2020 is going to look at me and go, you can live a full life without clear vision. Well, of course you can. There are many people who are visually impaired for many, many reasons that live a complete full life, but it's still a different life. There are no wheelchair ramps in developing in rural Africa. If you are in a wheelchair in rural Africa, you just deal with that gap. Glasses aren't that. Glasses are something that should be available and can solve a problem and make you equal. Pilots with 2200 vision can get corrected to 20/20 vision and can fly a plane. That's impossible if you are in the developing world and have no access to eyeglasses. So the goal of my company is to get the cost as low as possible and get access as high as possible in these regions through whatever channel works and is ethical and is supported by that tiered care, that echelon of care to move people up to that next level.
Beautiful. Kevin, how can people help? What are some things people can do out there to either support Global Vision 2020 in terms of donations or things of that nature as well, or support via websites or following social media channels or just whatever? What are some things that people can do to help kind of spread awareness and help the message for Global Vision 2020 to provide equal access to eye care across the
friends,
globe?
family, and supporters, we wouldn't be where we are. So yeah, absolutely. So donations are always appreciated. You can donate right on our website. There's a link to donate. We are a 501c3. We are a charitable organization, so it's fully tax deductible. We have a Facebook page. We have Instagram. I'm not very good at that, but I try to put stuff on there or share stuff from organizations that are using our kits. We'll put that on there so you can see them in action. Yeah, the influencers, absolutely. So if you're an influencer that travels to the developing world and you want to do something that is life-changing for the people that you support and yourself, call me up. We'll get you a backpack. You can go to the middle of some remote village, set up your vision testing screening facility, and screen people and get them eyeglasses, and then refer them up if they need more. It's absolutely life-changing. So that would be great. Churches that go on mission trips, I'd love to hear from them. If you are part of an organization that supports hospitals or orphanages or clinics or anything else overseas, those would be great people to talk to. Just getting that word out that, here's this massive problem that currently there appears to be no solution. Here's a solution. Let's link these two together. That would just be phenomenal.
Beautiful, Kevin. Anything that you would like to add personally about Global Vision 2020, about the USee Vision Kit, or anything in general
I really
that you just want to throw out there?
Will, to kind of get that information out there. Hopefully, someone will, some of your listeners it'll click and they'll be like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it either. Let's see what we can do to solve this problem. Again, it is super simple. It is super cheap, and really anyone can do it. I've trained people with a second grade education, to use this system, and they've done wonders with it. As long as you're a people person, it's a real easy system to use. So, again, thanks for the opportunity, Will. It's been great.
Kevin White, the founder of Global Vision 2020, trying to provide equal access to vision resources across the globe. Kevin, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed getting to an opportunity to learn about your solution today. So thanks for coming on. That's Kevin Whiting, once again, the founder of Global Vision 2020, joining us on this episode of the Talkin Solutions podcast. Kevin is doing a great job out there. Of course, like you said, you can go to his website to support, to denote. It's tax deductible, okay? Global Vision 2020, that's gv2020.org. You can go there to donate or to gather more information about it and figure out other ways that you can help out. And, of course, we'll have his stuff all over our Instagram pages on Talkin Solutions podcast for the week. So be sure to go check out the content on there as well. That's going to conclude this edition of the Talkin Solutions with the Chesh podcast. Looking forward to speaking with you on the next episode.